I wanted to do this video a few weeks ago during the first Faction Rally, but that happened to be around the same time as E3, as Bungie announcing Forsaken and Jurassic World Evolution releasing, so I didn't have that time back then. Now I'm making some time, sort of how the YouTube order makes time every day to go fuck himself. Let's just get right to the point. Bungie doesn't know what the fuck they're doing with factions, and it's been like that since Destiny 1. It seems like they wanted to add an additional layer of lore and gameplay and vendors and loot, but it just didn't know what the fuck they were doing. You know, much like Destiny 1, I have a feeling the factions were supposed to be part of something bigger, only for all the ideas they initially had to end up getting scrapped and dummied down to what we see now. You know, even in Destiny 1, factions had no true purpose, other than they would have some quest lines, some loot, the exotic class items. Otherwise, they were really just there for, like, what, decoration and to fill out the tower? For 3 years now, Bungie tried to give them more influence on our gameplay, and they tried to give them a purpose. But ultimately, they were just there for minor reasons. There's really no bearing on the game with any of the three factions. Now, come Destiny 2, it seems Bungie wanted to make them a bit more competitive with each other. And in all honesty, this is not a bad idea. The problem, though, has been the purpose of the faction rallies. The bigger problem is the lack of common sense that Bungie uses when it comes to implementing this shit. But the biggest problem is actually the story or lore or motivation behind these factions. So let's work our way up from problem number one. Number one is purpose. Since Destiny 2, faction rallies have received 4 changes so far, from very small things like adding armor to purchase, to adding guns and a better loot pool, to changing Lost Sectors farming. It shows that Bungie has a mechanics and purpose issue. When the faction rallies first launched, people grinded away at Lost Sectors, basically farming those shits by shooting the supply crates for multiple tokens. All it took was a few hours of farming, and you had enough to hit the maximum rank. That's it, just a few hours of farming, and the faction rally was mainly over. And for what? Bungie throttled the event by only allowing people to loot up to level 30, and then the loot pool wasn't faction rewards only, so once you hit level 30, that was all your rewards. If you hit level 31, you weren't getting shit. You could get all kinds of shit from the vendors, but if you wanted faction-specific gear, that was a fucking crapshoot, and getting their armor to drop was even more of a fucking chore, because you needed 5 pieces and only 30 drops, and it had the entire loot pool in the game involved. Plus, they showed off all these guns that each vendor had, but what they didn't tell us was that was going to be released during the season, so the entire loot pool wasn't available at the first faction rally. Why would anyone bother with the first one, when you might as well just grind out the last one for all the shit that you want? Of course, Bungie fixed that all down the road. They removed the crate farming, they condensed the loot pool to have more faction items, that allowed us to actually purchase the armor. Season 2 launches, and guess what? Farming methods are still available, as you can re-enter the same Lost Sector and kill a captain non-stop. The gun rewards are terrible. So the main thing people farm for were shaders and ornaments. Because the game has no fucking endgame, and the faction rallies still had no purpose. Then you progress to what they are now, and faction rallies have your entire account locked into one faction. Presumably this is to prevent people from enrolling in one character in each faction so that they guarantee the winning weapon. Now your choice with the faction is supposed to matter. Now you're supposed to make a wise decision in who you choose, and then grind the fuck out of Lost Sectors with the renown debuff and all that bullshit. All of these changes, all of these nuances, show that implementation, and mainly the vision of faction rallies, are non-existent. Bungie is just slapping shit together, hoping it sticks, trying to give people a reason to play these aside from the 3 exotic catalysts that each faction holds right now. Because let's be honest, right now what people are after are the catalysts for the Graviton Land, Sunshot, and Sweet Business. Otherwise, who really gives a fuck about these things? And this leads directly into problem number 2, common sense. Nobody expects companies to be perfect. No game will ever be perfect, no matter how great the game was created. There are always things that need to be tweaked, that don't work, that bother gamers or frustrate them. That's normal and it's understandable. So Bungie messing up faction rallies is a mistake. Fine, it's part of a long list of mistakes, but it can be corrected. Oh man, their fucking list of mistakes is like Santa Claus's naughty and nice list at this point. But anyway, the issue is, why are those mistakes so fucking stupid? No, really, I can forgive a mistake. Anybody can forgive a mistake. You can forgive an error or a glitch. But this is just common sense shit. That frustrates the fuck out of players. Throttling rewards was stupid, so they reversed that. Exorbitantly large loot pools with only limited drops was stupid, so they condensed the rewards. Now when Season 3 launched, some of the ornaments required you to have a full set of gear, but you can't buy all the fucking gear. You need the shit to drop, which is also a fucking chore. Of course, they reversed that, but essentially it's another common sense mistake. Then on top of that, when you have full armor, when you get each piece, or you held on to each piece from the prior seasons like I did, each character has their own ornament requirements, not account-wide, character-wide. Unlike Iron Banner, where if I get 100 super kills and I unlock the boots ornament, that's for all 3 characters. All 3 characters unlock their boots ornaments. Faction Rallies want your characters to unlock their own ornaments, getting 50 stacks of renown with each character to unlock the helmet ornament. So that's 150 stacks. 50 for your Titan, 50 for your Warlock, 50 for your Hunter. Defeat certain lost sectors to unlock your class item ornament. Then the chest and arms, they all have unique requirements per class, per faction to unlock the ornaments. Meanwhile, your entire account is locked into one faction. So how come Iron Banner achievements are unlocked across all your accounts, but Faction Rallies aren't? Why the fuck are we grinding out lost sectors again, but this time with a debuff, giving us less health, and dying takes away our tokens? What the fuck? It's infuriatingly stupid how common sense is not that common over at Bungie. And look, I get that Faction Rallies were adjusted so that your choice actually matters, but when you lock an account into a faction, but require each character to complete their own set of guidelines for an ornament, it shows that someone didn't think this shit through when they rolled it out. It shows that you ignored what was being done in Iron Banner, Vanguard, Crucible vendors, but you applied this to a 1-week event that you know people will change each time in order to get the 3 exotic catalysts. What this honestly feels like was that at the start of Season 3, they knew there were going to be different requirements for each one of the ornaments, but they decided at the last second to make people lock into those accounts. Instead of going back and readjusting those chest and arm ornaments, what do? They left them in. They didn't fucking pay attention to what the requirements were to the ornaments. However, they were so set on locking your account into a faction, they ignored the smaller pieces of this faction rally. So players couldn't buy gear in the first faction rally of Season 3 to get the ornaments. They have to individually unlock each ornament per character instead of account-wide when the account is locked. And then they're going to say, we have to fix this. No, that's not a glitch. That's not a coding error. That's someone creating this bullshit, not thinking it through, then pretending it's working as intended until players complain about it. Bullshit like this follows the typical Destiny pattern of rolling something out without any thought, without any community input, then finding out the community doesn't like this shit. It is a constant pattern with these motherfuckers. The final problem is that it completely ignored essentially the story and guidelines that guides the factions. Now look, I'm not a fucking expert on law and all that bullshit. But let's be honest here for a second. Destiny's ability to flesh out your characters, your personality of your character, your style of your character is non-existent. I mean, motherfucker, we don't even talk in the game at this point. We talked in Destiny 1 over like 5 fucking annoying lines. However, the little bit of lore and background that we have in this game, the motivations of our 3 Guardians type are supposed to be unique, right? Titans are the defenders of the city. They built the walls to protect humanity. Warlocks are the scholars and the researchers. They want to know more and understand why the Traveler visited us and exists, and they dedicate themselves to knowledge. Hunters are the adventurers, meant to search for trouble in the world, and their next big fight as a lone wolf style character. This was the background we were given for our characters. It's never truly materialized in the game, and that's the only fucking thing that was supposed to make us different. For people who run 3 characters, you have no personality traits that are different, just unique powers and armors and gears and shit like that. It's not like Destiny is a morale-based game where a Titan could be honorable, your Hunter could be a dickhead or something like that. It's fucking basic. This is not Mass Effect 3 where you could be a good character, a bad character, or something in between. No, we don't have any of that shit. The factions, however, also have their own little bit of lore, and oddly, some of the things that the factions believe in are very similar to the personality traits of your different characters. Dead Orbit wants to explore the stars because they don't think Earth is safe anymore or that the Traveler will protect them. They want to find a new home away from Earth to ensure survival. They're like the black sheep of the group, and that really fits the Hunter's mentality. Future War Cult. thinks impending war is coming, and they want to be prepared for war. So they sought out Vex technology to attempt to see into the future, blah, blah, blah. You guys can go read up on what the fuck they did. Essentially, they want knowledge. Which Guardian type wants knowledge? Our Warlocks, who want to study the Traveler. While they certainly study different things, but they both want to obtain knowledge in different areas. The class and the faction are the thinkers of the group. Finally, you have New Monarchy, who are all about defending the city and restoring the Golden Age. They defended the Speaker during an uprising, and they want to collect shit to make our city stronger for defense from either outside enemies or internal traitors. Defense is their key. And who are the main defenders in the game? You guessed it, Titans. Bungie throws that all out the window because they want you to pledge your allegiance to just one of them. And all three of your characters. It's not even like you can add any little bit of personality to your factions or any resemblance or uniqueness. Basically, all of that shit is removed because they want you to pledge to a faction just so you could get a fucking weapon at the end of this shit. A Titan in Dead Orbit makes very little sense, but we do it. A Hunter in New Monarchy doesn't seem right, but man, we need that lion head cloak ornament, don't we? This is probably the most egregious fucking thing because story and lore and expose have always been the biggest missing pieces of Destiny. Why the fuck do their backgrounds need to be hidden on Grimoire cards on a website? Why doesn't the game tell us how the three make up the consensus? Or how Future War Cult is the new kid on the block, and who the banished faction is? Does anybody know what the fuck the consensus is in the game? No, of course not. You gotta go read that shit on the fucking Grimoire on a goddamn website. Shit like that adds to a game. It adds to the story, and it can be done through missions, gameplay, or anything else that happens. But since Destiny 1 and Destiny 2 were both rushed, they had an idea that was dropped and turned into something else. The faction rallies, they also feel rushed too. They were never fully fleshed out. They were never given a reason to be pledged to. Essentially, it just doesn't feel like a complete product. And at this point, they serve no other function other than to be a junk collecting vendor. I mean, that's really it. Aside from the exotic ornaments and the catalysts, they serve no purpose in the game. They've been implemented in such a shitty way that they've needed to have multiple changes up to this point. And I'll guarantee you they're going to have changes in the fucking future. And without any explanation as to their rich history, which is stuck on outside sources and websites, they become such a background figure that makes zero impact on this game. Now, I can sit here and give detailed ways of how to make them better, but what's the point? Will Bungie listen? No, of course not. Will they change it? Possibly, but certainly not with fan input. Do I want to do a 10 to 20 minute video explaining all the things that they could have done to improve the factions and the faction rallies? No, because in the end, Bungie will find a good way to fuck a thing up. What seemed like a good idea, adding more background and expose to the grand story of Destiny with all the ideas of the factions and shit like that, hasn't even turned out. Basically, we're collecting junk. We're doing these stupid-ass missions, pledging ourselves to factions that make absolutely no sense with our personality-less character, and then in the end, what do we get out of this? A couple of exotic catalysts. I got some swords back in Destiny 1 for my troubles. Otherwise, the faction rallies are essentially pointless at this point. It could be something better, but again, Bungie dropped the ball on just another fucking thing that they've added to this game. Anyways, today was a little bit of a negative video, but Friday, oh, we're gonna have a nice fun video for that one. Friday, we gotta talk about the Escalation Protocol shotgun, because that motherfucker is one of the best goddamn things Bungie has added to this game. Fuck the faction rallies. Let's all go out and get the goddamn Escalation Protocol shotgun. So we're going to talk about that shit on Friday. So as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all the good shit. And I'll see you guys in the next video.